I did not believe when I started doing this that you could use it to cure sciatica. And then I saw our executive director do that. And that made a believer of me. You know, I started by curing herpes. I had 2 kinds of herpes and I cured them both in 1993. But I actually didn't know that I'd cured HSV-1 till 96. Now that's another story for another time. There's a lot of other stories for other times, and I guess we should focus on sciatica here. Well, just to give you a sense of what a miracle this is, or to put it another way, how alien this is to your, probably to your experience, and you may already have shut this down. Some people just take one look at me and they're gone, you know. But that's another story for another time. Anyway, you know, if you've got sciatica and you want to cure it, the cure show that you want to listen to is Bill Pelly's cure show about his bone spur, which is on this page, you know, that you found this movie on, presumably, unless you came through YouTube, in which case you're going to have to find curedrive.org, aren't you, where you'll find the the links to these cure shows. Anyway, but I'm embedding this on this page, so you'll see Bill over there. Now, Bill called me up, and he said, I'm having surgery. And I said, okay. And he said, and I want to see if I can cure it, you know, before I go for surgery. Now, the surgery was in about a week, whatever it was. You know, you'll hear in the cure show how far in the future. But it wasn't that far, okay? I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't that far in the future. So Bill says, okay, I'm having surgery. Let's do a cure show. Now, generally, if somebody said that, I'm not so sure I would have been that excited back then anyway. I probably wouldn't have been that excited about doing a cure show, but Bill is a very stand-up kind of guy, you know. Bill was one of 6 people in charge of civil rights in this country for years. He was a director of HUD for the Northeast region. And he once cut off all federal funding to the city of Philadelphia for their discriminatory hiring practices. So you know, he's a gutsy sort of fellow. He came out as a gay in the Reagan administration, and they didn't know what to do with him at first. You know, he wore an earring to work. He started wearing an earring, and they freaked, you know. But then they put him in charge of civil rights. I guess they figured, well, if he'll stand up for gays, maybe he'll stand up for blacks. And he did, you know. That's hence the cutting off of the federal funding. So I said, okay, let's do a cure show. And the cure show is one of the most interesting cure shows I've ever done because of how abysmally awful it was. I mean, I got off that cure show. I don't know what the cure show will sound like to you when you listen to it, because you will hear how to cure sciatica and related spinal disorders in that cure show, okay? You will hear us doing that, and that is how you do it. But when I got off that show, I said, we're dead. He's having the surgery. And, you know, he went to this, you know, he had been diagnosed by his doctor who x-rayed him, and they saw the bone spur on the x-ray. Then he did the cure show with us. And a few days later, he went to the surgeon. And by the time he got to the surgeon, he had no pain. So he walked into the surgeon and he said, I don't feel anything anymore. And the surgeon said, let's re-x-ray it and see what's there. And they took the x-ray again, and the bone spur was still there, right in place, just the same way it had been during the original x-ray. And the surgeon said, forget the operation. If it doesn't hurt, we're not going to operate. Why operate? You know, if it's not bothering you, give me a call if it bothers you again. And that was 3 years ago. Okay? So now I will tell you about Greg. Greg always had sciatica off and on all his life, but it really heated up when he became, well, he was a lacrosse player, and then he went into dance. And, this was in the 70s, okay? Now, we're now up in the 2000s when he had this serious case of sciatica. Like, the sciatica just ramped up. It just got way worse. And I don't remember. He may say, in his cure shows, I don't know if we have any cure shows with Greg about sciatica, but if we don't, we better. Because he better talk about how he cured it. But I will tell you what he said anyway. He said that he just took pathologies and immune dysfunctions out of his higher bodies. Now again, I say this is an alien reality. But this is what you're going to learn to do. You see this book? This is a sort of a summary of everything that's in the Webb College. It's the textbook for the Webb College. And here's a list of pathologies right here. It also has a list of immune dysfunctions and functions, and you remove the immune dysfunctions and pathologies and install the functions. And this is what he did. He did basic stuff, that we teach. And he also found sciatica in his higher bodies, and he took that out. And he did a bunch of other things like, which I'm sure if you have sciatica, you've probably started learning, like relaxation exercises. But he was doing those before, and that didn't do it. It was the taking out of the sciatica and just the alteration of his being that came from that, and the taking out of the pathologies and immune dysfunctions that stopped the sciatica. But I remember he went through a period where he wasn't doing those things, even though he was the executive director of this work, this effort. And the person who's donated a lot of the money for it and so on, but he wasn't doing it. And he was in bed, and he wasn't getting out of bed. Like, he was in bed half the day and not getting out. And this went on for a couple of months. And I didn't say that much to him about it. But I guess he smartened up, and he started taking out the stuff he needed to take out. And that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to remove these pathologies from these bodies. Pretend I have the list in my hand. And then you're going to take out the sciatica. And first you're going to do lesson number 1, where you learn how to do those things. Okay? That's what, in lesson number 1, which is right in the middle of the home page, and it's also on this page, and in lesson number 1, you learn how to do these things. And when you've done that, you will find all kinds of things change, one of those things being sciatica.